And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pipe Report. I'm here with 40 Ounce today, someone who I think should have actually a lot more subscribers. He does very good monologues, very good in-depth analysis. So,
Greetings. Thanks for having me on, man. Really appreciate it.
one sec here. I'm hearing my voice on. I'm hearing my voice through your speakers, I think.
Oh my gosh. Are you still hearing it?
Let me test here. Talk, talk, talk. No, sounds like it's good now. Yeah, it was like really loud, so no, I
Oh,
lied.
that's
It's
weird.
back.
Oh, lovely.
No, sounds like. Oh wait, shit, that's me. I'm sorry. I'm actually doing. I'm on the live video chat. I forgot to mute it. Whoops.
Oh, yeah, I've had that problem before.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone, or the four people that are here. Let me restart here. I'm welcome to Pipe Reports. I'm 40 Ounce, someone who has good in-depth analysis, good political views. His channel link is in the description, along with his Twitter, so be sure to check him out. 40, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
I guess to get things started, can you tell everyone about your channel, like what you do?
Yes, I'm a little busy at the moment, so I'm not exactly producing content every day. However, I at least try and do a weekly news roundup of sorts, and I do my best to do videos in between. My previous video I think I'm most proud of is a kind of a an analysis of how we have essentially devolved into Plato's Republic and how incredibly authoritarian Plato actually is. So that's my
Nice.
personal favorite though. I don't know. Feel free to browse amongst them.
I did a little bit of reading of Plato last year, Plato's Symposium, basically the idea of a fractured self or fractured souls trying to rebuild each other.
Yeah, I haven't read the Symposium yet. I've only read the Republic, but the reading list expands every day, and I just don't have enough time in the world.
Yeah, I actually I have an Audible account. I don't know if you ever heard of Audible, and like I drive a lot, so I'll just put like an audiobook on and get a lot of books in that way.
Yeah, I do my best to listen to audiobooks on YouTube. Although I probably should sign up for Audible at some point. Um, I have a feeling that I won't be able to find some of the books because oh my gosh, I just have an ungodly reading list right now. Like I need to read at least two things by Aristotle. I need to read oh God, I need to read Ravelli. I just need to read a plethora of people that I probably couldn't find some of their more I probably couldn't find all of their works on YouTube, you know.
Yeah, I got you. All right, I guess to start things off here, Trump just ended healthcare subsidies and he signed a new executive order which allows people to purchase health insurance across state lines. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, if Rand Paul's behind it, I can get behind it too, I suppose. No, I really do. The thing I'm most excited for is the fact that he is starting to kind of initiate the competition between state lines. Just Obamacare's just it's got such draconian kind of bylaws that just rack up people's deductibles and all these sorts of really nasty things. I think it'll be good for people to finally start scrapping Obamacare. That way, just premiums and all these other different kinds of things, they're not killing people's wallets.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, though, what I guess a lot of people are worried about is that, well, first off, before I go there, now what's going to happen, ever since Trump did this, now all subsequent issues that happen with healthcare are going to be blamed on Trump. So to this regard, Obamacare is now going to be praised as like, the greatest thing because Trump screwed it up. It was working fine, but Trump screwed it up, which is bullshit. I mean, which is complete bullshit. But anyways, though, it is possible that doing this will raise premiums. I mean, the healthcare subsidies probably will, but those subsidies were illegal anyways. I mean, the federal court actually ruled that they were illegal, that because Obama was stealing them from the Treasury. But I'm fine with that because I'm a constitutionalist at heart. So as long as Trump gives the powers back to Congress, he reverts the U.S. back to the separation of powers as defined in the Constitution, I'm fine with that. But I guess one last thing here, I'm kind of going on a tangent here, with the whole now cross state lines. That is going to be good for a lot of people, but at the same time, I think it will hurt those that are poor, because a lot of poor people actually need people to pay higher premiums so they can get the healthcare that they need. So I think you're going to see a lot of pissed off, not really lower class, it's kind of insensitive word to use, but they're going to a lot of pissed off people that don't make that much money.
No. You're totally right. Oh gosh. Well, oh, I don't even really know where to go with that. Well, I mean, there is the principle of the matter. If you just want to talk strictly principles, but oh, you shouldn't have someone else pay for your health care and all these other things. Um, and of course, I'm sure you've had that discussion 100 times. But there is one thing that really does kind of tick me off just a little bit. And it's the fact that typically people like someone like Bernie Sanders, for instance, might tout the line, "Oh, well, 95% of people, they really want free shit. They really want free healthcare. Redistribute the ice cream and all this other thing, right?" So, and it's so funny. That's such an incredible misnomer because it's it's relative to not having healthcare. So giving someone free shit, I mean, of course they're going to want it, as opposed to not having anything to begin with. Talking strictly of healthcare in this single instance. So I think that that's just a ridiculous talking point that the left just needs to totally abandon. And I just relying on the free market to actually give people the premiums that is rightfully deserved. For instance, you are a healthy individual, you don't smoke. Why should you have to pay for me since I'm a habitual smoker? I don't go jogging every day, right? So why, if we're talking principles, should you have to pay for my inadequate behavior and my terrible upkeep of my personal health?
Exactly. Exactly. No, that's exactly right. And that was one of I mean, that's kind of the cornerstone of socialism. They try to say it's fairness. It's all about fairness. Like Obama during a debate in '08, he was asked a question. I forgot who the moderator was, but he asked him, "Would you recommend a tax on capital gains if that tax would actually decrease revenue?" And he said yes, because it'd be fair for everyone. I mean, that just kind of gives the mindset of Obama, who is responsible for Obamacare.
Yeah. Well, fair isn't about producing an equality of outcome, like the typical socialist wants to do. Fair would be in a kind of laissez-faire capitalist society. Fair would be, right, let's remove all the, what shall we call them? Let's remove all the institutional barriers, quote unquote, because that's a word that socialists like to use. Let's remove all institutional barriers, let's remove all economic barriers and say, right, this is a society where the sweat off your own brow will earn you your place in society. Where if you work hard, if you found your own business, if you bust your ass, and like most small business owners do, if you put in like a year or 2 years work, like no salary paid, and you just try your hardest to get your business started off, you will succeed. And if you're good at marketing, if you're a competent individual, that is a fair society. Just giving people free shit because of feels or because, the color of their skin or the economic background that they have, that is not a free society. That's it's trying to create a free society. But I don't know. I suppose at this point it just comes down to your definition of what is a free society.
Yeah, there was a
And that's
Brookings.
just yeah.
There was a Brookings Institute study a few years back that said if you follow three guidelines, if you graduate high school, wait till you're married to have kids, and get a full-time job, I think it's 75 or 85% chance of joining the middle class and only 2% chance of being in poverty. See, the thing with
Yeah.
poverty, most of the people in poverty are single black mothers, and I don't want to put the blame on them, but at the same time here, they get a lot of kickbacks here. And their fathers or the fathers of the children are mostly gang members. So they knock a girl up, whatever, they go on the street and do what they got to do. I think to actually fix the poverty issue, I know this wasn't really what we were going to talk about, but while we're on the subject here, to fix it, we just really have to change everything from the ground up. We have to start over, and hopefully Congress does that. But since Congress is all the same, just has their different narratives that they push, I don't see any big changes from Congress anytime soon.
Yeah, no, 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 no. Yeah, if it, oh gosh, yeah, if you want to create the most equal society, you need people to be actually responsible for their actions. You need to have a society in which you are not stripping people of their own agency, which is typically done to the lower class by socialists. That is, socialists will go out and say, well, uh, this people, they're poor, they were born into poverty, they're never gonna escape it. And socialists, ironically, treat the lower class as just a bunch of stupid, bumbling plebs that'll never get ahead in life. And they constantly preach about how this is a doomed class of society and they're never gonna get ahead. Well, I mean, frankly,
With
not
that
with that
attitude,
attitude.
yeah,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
God
Yeah,
damn.
well, not with that attitude, first of all. And second of all, you have to realize that not all people, of course, that would I think be an ignorant statement, but a majority of people, at the bare minimum, a majority of people are there of their own accord. And they're there because of, to just put it quite bluntly, they're there of the terrible decisions that they had made previously. They're there because they decided to have a child out of wedlock at the age of 16. Or, insert various reasons here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Many
so
of them
I think
too are. Go on.
oh, sorry, go on.
No, go on.
Oh, I was going to say it's a terrible thing to actually strip people of their own moral agency. And that's one thing I can't stand about socialism. It operates under the assumption that the people in the lower class are complete idiots. And I know they're not, just people that've made bad decisions, that's all.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And it also seems like these people that, Bernie supporters, they are very impressionable. Like they actually believe in free college. Well, I mean, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Somebody's going to be paying for it. They hear free college, free healthcare, like, oh, this is great. This is great. Bernie's the man. But what they don't understand, even if someone would attempt to try to implement and utilize Bernie's policies, the country would go bankrupt. I mean, we just can't afford it unless we have drastic taxes. But if you do drastic taxes, you're going to inhibit job production and growth because people can't hire people if they're spending 80% of their wealth on taxes.
Yeah, precisely. I have the unfortunate displeasure of living in the state of California, and
Yeah.
I'm sure you know, but for those who don't, California actually tried to implement single-payer healthcare. That is to say that the government will take care of you, you dumb little pleb, and they will pay for your healthcare because you are obviously not able to do it on your own. You're not a big boy, right? So the government will pay for your healthcare and all these other things. Well, California actually had to abandon that plan because was it double or triple? Oh, I think it basically what it would do is if they implemented this overnight, it would double their debt basically. And their deficit would just go down the sink. And so they literally scrapped it because they literally could not afford it. And even to actually afford this, you'd have to raise taxes to such an incredible amount that gosh, even for California, you would have an extraordinarily upset voter base, I have to say.
Yeah. I guess since we're talking about California, since you also live there, what are your thoughts on them decriminalizing knowingly giving somebody HIV?
Oh my gosh.
Well, first I should ask, did that pass or are they trying to get that to pass? Like, is that
I
law
actually
now?
haven't I actually haven't looked at it in I think about a week, but last time I did look at it, my understanding was that the bill had actually passed. So yeah, that's a thing in California now.
It's just insane.
Yeah, the I can't remember the name of the man that passed it. But if you want to get all conspiratorial, apparently he has ties to Antifa and all these other kinds of things. And that's not to say that those are true, but that definitely lends credibility to the type of individual that we're talking here that would pass this kind of bill.
Yeah.
It's certainly one of these social justice warrior, or whatever you want to call them, certainly one of those types. But yeah, such an egregious thing to actually legalize the murder of people with the use of HIV. Oh, gosh, it's so ridiculous. I'm surprised that California hasn't just dropped Agent Orange all over the place. If we're gonna resort to chemical warfare,
Yeah. Well,
I suppose that'd be a great opportunity.
I was going to do a video called California, the worst state in the union, question mark. I never did, but I did a video way in the, like, back in the day, I think last year, about how they decriminalize child prostitution. And some people on my video, they posted like, "You're an idiot, blah, blah." I mean, they're trying to help the children. Well, here's my response to that. Making it illegal was the best way to help the children, because back then, if a cop saw what was clearly an underage girl soliciting a man, he could arrest her for solicitation. Now, however, he
Yeah.
cannot do that. He can witness a 12-year-old woman solicit, or girl solicitate a guy, and he can't do shit about it. It's just like, and they don't understand that by decriminalizing, you're not actually helping them. If you arrest those girls, you get them off the street. You can call social services, things of that nature.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are such gross. Oh my gosh, it's gotten to the point in California where I don't even think the representatives are representing very well. I don't understand how the average person in California would look at a bill that legalizes essentially legally giving someone AIDS, legally killing someone, right? Because that's essentially what this inevitably leads to. You are legally killing someone by giving them HIV. It's a hell
Yeah.
of a death sentence. And the fact that you could legalize that, it really makes me question what the hell kind of society I'm living in here.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would be surprised if they didn't come out tomorrow and be like, yeah, so you can kill someone with bubonic plague and you can get away with it. That's fine. Yeah, go ahead and walk around and puke on people. I'm sure it'll work out just fine.
Well, they're also pushing to make using the wrong pronoun illegal. It's just like me growing up. I was raised on there's two, but biological sexes, male and female. So when I see somebody, and let's say they have male characteristics, subconsciously I am thinking male. So when I talk about them, I'm going to refer them as a he or a him. So apparently now, if I do that in California, I might get arrested, breaking the law.
Yeah. Well, I don't believe we're talking an arrest here. I believe it's just a fine at the moment. Although who the hell knows? To be
Yeah.
quite honest, I wouldn't doubt it if that kind of came to fruition eventually. But yeah, just like New York, we're going to implement the very same pronoun laws here. Um, oh my gosh, I, I don't know. Just some of these things, I just don't even know what to say, just because they're so shockingly stupid. Um, I suppose if I wanted to transition tomorrow, I could have everyone I know ever thrown in jail for calling me a he, the bigots. I mean,
Yeah. Exactly.
I
I don't know.
just I
I
just don't even know what's happening in this state anymore.
They're on a downward trajectory, and I don't see them really coming back anytime soon.
Yeah, we are definitely the kind of Sweden of Sweden of the United States. It's not exactly getting any better here.
Anyways, moving on now. So there's new information out that the Clintons received a bribe from Russia over uranium, and once again, our good friend Comey didn't do anything about it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so oh gosh. Right, so what happened is essentially the was the FBI or the CIA? Actually can't remember. I think it was the FBI eventually found out that there were Russian operatives in the United States essentially bribing their way through the United States energy sector. And they eventually, through a series of events, they eventually ended up buying out Uranium One, which is a Canadian uranium like strip mining corporation, I believe it was, if the memory serves correctly. But yeah, the Clintons ended up eventually, in total, getting a total of $145 million worth of kickbacks,
Jeez,
if memory serves correctly. So,
that's just
and
insane.
what's funny, yeah, and what's funny is that I read I believe it was yesterday, I read that Clinton was actually head of a board, head of a committee rather, that approved the sale of uranium one to Russia, allowing them to steal 20% of our freaking uranium. And I just thought that that was not so much amazing, I suppose. Someone had to approve the bill, right? But yeah, totally wretched. Um, the part that actually concerns me is the fact that no one knows where this uranium is. No one knows
Hmm.
if it's in Russia. It could be in North Korea, could be in Iran, could be in Iraq, could be in Pakistan, could be in
Yeah.
India. Literally could be anywhere on the face of the earth. We're missing 20% of US uranium and we have no idea where it is. That's the part that bugs the shit out of me.
I actually didn't know that. That's nuts.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it.
And Comey, just every time I think of Comey, I get mad because, if you actually listen to him, just his impression, he actually appears like somebody who is trying to do the best he can, like an honest person. But then you actually
Yeah.
learn more about him. You're like, wow, this guy is filth. This guy's a liar. I mean, he basically lied under oath about Hillary when he forgot who the representative was. But the representative asked him, did you make up your mind about Hillary's innocence before or after her interview? And he said under oath after. Well, now we know that he wrote the memo exonerating her months before he interviewed her, or not, he didn't interview her, his people did, and also 17 other witnesses. So
Yeah.
essentially, he made up his mind long before that. And every time I tell that story, I always have to bring up another story. Like his brother Peter works for DLA Piper, which was a law firm for the Clinton Foundation. Comey used to work for Lockheed Martin, which was a subsidiary for the Clinton Global Initiative. I mean, looking at
Yep.
Comey, him and Clinton's, they're tight. I can't see him doing anything that would jeopardize her or her career.
Oh yeah, what an excellent pawn to have in place. And you're totally right, actually, about him seeming so innocent, just wanting to do the best job he could, to honor his esteemed position, I suppose. That's actually what I thought as well, initially coming into this bullshittery that is the Uranium One deal. It was I can't remember any specific instances off the top of my head, but I do remember him being um, I don't exactly want to say even-handed, but I do remember him taking pot shots at both Hillary and Trump. And so that gave me the kind of initial inclination that, right, this is just a guy that just wants to do his job. And I remember of actually eventually sitting down and really trying to think about it. And I was just like, right, so, if he sides with Hillary Clinton, he is doomed, and he will lose his position if Trump takes power. Right, well, if he sides with Trump and Hillary takes power, well, he's doomed and he loses his position. But the funny thing is that either way, no matter who he supported, no matter what scenario that you could possibly conjure up, there is almost no scenario in which the man doesn't lose his job. And that was I thought incredible because this is a man you're seeing almost the death throes of a man who is trying desperately to reaffirm his position and to really try and keep his job. And that's literally what that looked like to me. But in the end, to find out that he was to, just quite frankly another pawn of the Clintons is upsetting and concerning, seeing as how I kind of felt pity for him.
Yeah. Here's what I thought of it too. Let's see if you agree with me here. Let's put away the fact that, he has connections to the Clintons. Let's just look at him based on someone who doesn't know anything about politics or the Clintons. And I think here's how they viewed Comey. Basically, Comey, if he would have recommended charges against Hillary Clinton, he would have been the first person in history to essentially ruin the first female president, her chance of becoming president. Because at the time, everyone thought that Hillary Clinton was the next president. So I think he viewed the investigation that way too. Like, I'm going to be hated by everyone in the Democratic establishment if I recommend charges.
Yeah, that's so true. And as far as I can remember, no one of his stature has intervened to the degree that he has within a presidential election. if memory serves correctly. So the meddling that he did alone, whether you think his meddling was influential or not, the meddling he did partake in was was monumental, really, in terms of how people viewed the Clintons, how people viewed Trump, and all these other sorts of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we'll have to see what happens. I mean, nothing's going to happen to her, of course. It should, but I think the law distinguishes between two different types of people: those who are prestigious that have connections, and those like you and me, your average Joe.
Yes, precisely. Yeah, and for all the for all the scandals that previous presidents have been caught up in, how many of them served time in jail?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, have you heard of the House of Representatives pushing a new legislation called the Liberty Act, which is the worst name of mankind? But, anyways, have you heard of the Liberty Act?
Yes, and it is terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible, terrible, terrible. So what this is essentially they're trying to reform the NSA, but they're not doing a very good job at it. It seems, or at least that's my take on it. It seems though as though the intentions behind it are genuine, but at the same time they're just not making a very good effort. You know, this is not exactly a Herculean effort that we're or a Sisyphean effort that we're kind of talking about here. Um, the problems I have with the bill is the fact that they're not even trying to eliminate the fact that the NSA has, they're not trying to make it illegal. What the NSA is doing using backdoor spying techniques on people's computers and everything like that. You know, even televisions that have microphones in them that'll pick up your voice. You know, all these things, cell phones and the whatnot. They're not even making the vaguest attempt to try and impede that effort. And and it's so funny because this has led to a gross amount of misuse of power. Especially previously in the past, there have been cases of disgruntled NSA employees who say, "Ah, well, my wife broke up with me and she took the house and the kids and the dog and the blah 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 blah."
Yeah.
And so I'm just gonna spy on her. I'm gonna dig up dirt and maybe I can use this in a court. Or, I don't know. Insert scenario here where people are spying on girlfriends or family members or wives, and this is a documented thing. This has happened in the past previously. They're not even trying to impede that at all, and they're not trying to inflict any kind of judicial oversight either. They're just not making a decent effort at all. It's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, the very first thing that pops out to me, of course, is the name. It seems like whenever the government is trying to step on your rights and liberties, they give it some patriotic or national name to, to try to bring people together, try to unify them, like the Patriot Act. And then there's also one I was looking up. It's called Restoring Internet Freedom Act. And basically that was against net neutrality.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, the Liberty Act. Quick, we must liberate everyone from those
Yeah.
pesky freedoms that they have. Yeah.
Well, I was doing
Oh,
before we
that's
got
funny.
on here, I was doing some research on the Liberty Act, and from what I read, basically, it's just a renewal of the Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance
Yeah.
Act, FISA, and basically the Heritage Foundation. They were saying that, I mean, this is mandatory. We need this for our safety, and I guess what this does also is this renews the programs that Snowden showed us, Prism and Upstream. Prism
Yes.
essentially was the government working with big corporations to spy on us, like Google and Microsoft. Upstream was the government working with internet service providers to spy on us. So basically,
Yeah.
both these programs, I mean, they're designed for foreign intelligence service or foreign services, yet the American people always got brought into it somehow, and the American people, our rights get stepped on from these atrocious legislation bills.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is ultimately the problem I have with this is the fact that there's no scenario in which your personal information is not valuable. They could somehow uncover that every night, you know, at 2 in the morning you got up to go to the bathroom. Well, that's going to be viewed as a somewhat valuable information by one corporation or another. It's just not even possible that there's no way to make money on your personal information. And you know, there are companies out there that do purchase your personal information. And where
Oh
do you
yeah,
think they're getting it? They're getting it from
yeah,
the government. There are corporations. What was it called? I think about a year ago, I watched a documentary on Netflix. Yes, Netflix, and I think it was called "Living Off the Grid" or something like this. And the man actually goes to this one of these headquarters of people that essentially buy up in mass. They buy up the data that's mined by essentially the government. They buy up this data and then sell it in turn to corporations who want to sell you things. And this is why when you go to Amazon and you buy something and they're just like, "Ah, yes, you also might enjoy this anime figurine or something."
Yeah.
Or anime figurine next to a Bible and, a small crucifix or something funny like this, right? It's because of the data that was accumulated and then in turn sold to various corporations.
I know a few times, like when I was trying to make my website, I was looking at WordPress and stuff like that, and then it seemed like every news website I went to, either Fox News, blah 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 blah, for the ads, everything was WordPress or build your own website, blah blah. It's like, so how do they know that? Well, obviously they sold my information. They need to.
Yeah. Actually, it's kind of funny. Or, well, no, it's not funny because people died. But right. So,
All right.
I there have been two instances in my life where I knew someone personally who had, or three instances technically, where I knew someone at one point, or I knew them at the time, and they had either died or committed suicide or something like this, right? And what's so incredible is I never realized it until late, but every time that happened, I got I got ads for like suicide prevention and stuff like that on the side of my computer when just browsing random websites. And I never, ever realized that until recently, actually. I knew someone, I don't know him anymore now. But I knew someone personally for a short amount of time, and I got news recently that he had died. Well, literally the day after he died, I literally got two ads on my computer talking about suicide prevention. Just like, wow, well, this is very convenient.
Yeah, right.
And these may seem like small conveniences, but the chance is about as great as a grain of sand exploding into a supernova. These instances they're not coincidental. They do happen for a reason.
And a lot of people argue for these type of bills, that step on our rights or mass surveillance. They always say, I'm fine with that because I have nothing to hide. Well, saying that is synonymous with like, well, I don't care about the First Amendment because I have nothing to say. It's like we
Yeah,
we need it. We need our rights and liberties, because without our rights and liberties, we are essentially slaves. I mean, we're already kind of on that way there. We're slaves to corporatism and to the government. But if we don't have rights and liberties, I mean, we don't have liberty at all. Like, we are
yeah.
not free.
It's actually funny that you mention that. People will say, "Oh, I have nothing to hide. Please, my life is an open book." But I
Yeah.
don't think I've actually ever met anyone that said that. I don't think I've ever met a single person that said that. Or maybe it's just because I grew up in a military, slightly more conservative household. Maybe that's the fact, but I don't think I've ever heard someone say that or use that argument in my entire life. So that is, in my opinion, a little piss poor.
Yeah.
Um, but
Well, I see it on I see it on, like, on articles or on YouTube. People a lot of times, I don't care. Or if you listen to, I think the Heritage Foundation might actually like say something on the lines of, yeah, but I mean, if you're free, this protects you. If you're not doing anything wrong, this shouldn't concern you, and blah blah blah.
yeah,
It kind of
yeah.
alludes to that, but go on.
But then again, no, you're. Yeah, I'm sure you're right. I don't doubt you. There are certainly people out there that literally just don't care. As long as you don't impede with their daily life, they'll go about happily with whatever you do.
Well, they
You
should
could make a
care, yeah.
bill. Yeah, you could, for instance, make a bill legalizing murder with AIDS, and they probably wouldn't care because
Yeah.
maybe they're just they don't have anything to do with AIDS or whatever it might be. Um, I totally actually forgot what I was gonna say.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, the AIDS thing, it just blows my mind. Some of the stuff California is doing. It's like, wow.
Yeah, definitely. Um, oh gosh, I totally forgot what I was gonna say. Well, I suppose I don't agree with the Liberty Act. obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just in terms of going back to the matter of principle, um, even if you even if you don't have anything to hide, even if you're not some kind of domestic terrorist organization, right? You're not part of like a branch of the IRA or anything, right? You're not putting nail bombs under anyone's cars. You know, there's still you still
Privacy.
deserve some form of privacy. Yeah, it would be like if anyone it'd be like if anyone could literally walk up to your window and just peep in. And that is essentially what is going on here. Um, to gain access to someone's computer, it is literally just as easy as walking up to a window and looking in. There are people on. I don't know if you personally have ever been to, the dark web, the deep web, whatever you want to term it. But there are people who can gain access to live feeds relatively easily if you're hooked
Oh
up
yeah.
to a Wi-Fi connection. They're actually, fun fact, not to scare anyone, but there are actually websites that will sell
Your data,
people's
power
live
card and stuff.
streams.
Oh
Yeah,
really?
they'll sell your cards. They'll sell live streams. Like for instance, baby cams actually. Baby cams are typically hooked up via Wi-Fi, so you can actually look at them on your phone. Well, someone else can actually access that remotely, and you would never know. So, people do sell user data. There is a market for someone's user data. Now, whether you're in turn selling it to other corporations or maybe using it for your own nefarious deeds, who's to say? But there is certainly a market for that, and it is incredibly easy to obtain your data. So just think of it like this: if you were to set up your little baby cam, Would you want someone spying on your, you know,
Yeah.
6-year-old infant daughter? It's just a matter of principle.
I know one person, Tex Texan, actually, he told me like we did a collab a while ago, and he said that he actually put duct tape over his webcam on his computer, just things
Yeah.
of that. And I actually heard a pretty good parallel describing the problem with the government essentially spying on your e-data. And it's just like it's no different than the government reading your mail. Like they come to your mailbox, open your mail, and read your mail. But it's even more.
Hmm.
It's more personal than that because I mean your email, it kind of, if you order something, it kind of delineates your own personality, like what your hobbies are, what you enjoy. I mean, if you're a porn addict, well, the government sees all the porn you're looking at, things of that nature. I agree with you. It's just wrong on so many levels. I mean, the name, the Liberty Act, this is a joke, and the main sponsor is Representative Bob Gulati. And I don't know what state he's in, but hopefully someone has him as their congressman and they can just freaking write him a bunch of mean letters and call him because this isn't right.
Yeah, and oh gosh, I do not remember the author of this novel, and I really really wish I did. So there was George Orwell who wrote 1984,
Yeah.
but then do you remember the name of the author who wrote A Brave New World by chance?
I do not.
Oh my gosh. I read it so long ago. I read it in high school, and I cannot remember the name of the author.
Is kind of like a
It's
fiction dystopian kind of
it's
novel?
oh, this is killing me inside. I legitimately might stroke out right now. I can't. Yeah, right. So,
Huxley,
this
Mad
is
Dodge says Huxley.
yes, yes, Huxley. Thank you, Mad Dodge. Right. So, these are two very infamous sci-fi dystopian kind of novels here, 1984, and then A Brave New World by Huxley. Orwell being the one who wrote 1984, that is. So, in George Orwell's 1984, he says, right, the government will ban books because the government will think, right, they're getting hold of these dangerous forms of knowledge. We must suppress them. But Huxley actually had posits a different theory. He says, right, the government will not have the need to ban books because people will not seek them out. People will be self-absorbed. They will be engaged in the common trivial matters of life, right? And it's so funny because people like to make comparisons to 1984, to George Orwell's 1984, and I think they're so wrong. And I should probably make a video about this because this is something I've thought about for quite some time. They're so incredibly wrong when they cite 1984. You should be citing A Brave New World because humans, like Huxley
Technology.
writes, Sorry?
I was gonna say like technology, like they're all on their phones, so they're not. They're I mean they're just listening to what they're being told essentially.
Yes, exactly. Humans have grown so complacent, right? We would rather watch Kim Kardashian. I don't even know what shows she has because I don't watch them, right? But they would much rather watch Kim Kardashian on their television than actually partake in regional politics, right? They would much rather go on their phone, check their Twitter, check their Facebook, and gossip amongst their friends, rather than actually sit down and engage themselves in local politics at the county or the city level, right? And people, Huxley essentially writes that people are complacent. People are creatures of pleasure, and I mean personally, if you've read any Hobbes, you might agree with him, and I totally agree with Hobbes and Huxley here. People are complacent, and they just don't care because it doesn't affect their daily lives, and they don't realize that it actually does, and that's the part that's just totally
That's
it
actually
brings no end of shame.
That's actually a really good analogy because we were kind of talking about like people that are like that earlier, you know, in response to they hear like someone like Bernie Sanders who is hailed as like a hero to the poverty-stricken people. So they listen to Bernie Sanders and they think everything he says is true because there's no way Bernie Sanders could be a bad person. I mean, the guy is just he cares about me, so everything he said must be, you know, like a gospel. And
Yes.
they're so set on that narrative that they don't do any of their own independent research. They don't actually look like for me, for instance, I'll read an article, and if I'm going to do a video on it, I right away I'll either go to a left-leaning website article or I'll just Google it and I'll try to read more about it. Just make sure I'm not spewing fake news, and just make sure I can get another opinion, another side of things, and then try to mold my analysis that way. And I don't think a lot of people don't do that anymore. And just not just Bernie supporters too. I mean, a lot of Trump supporters too. They hear Trump say something, it's automatically right. And yeah, you that analogy, Brave New World. That's exactly what's happening today.
Yeah. Yeah, you're definitely right, and it makes it even worse that things have grown so incredibly just
Easy.
partisan.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh well, both really. I mean, the fact that things have grown so partisan, this only divides people even further, and it drives people who were previously on the right. It drives them even farther right, right? So they used to go to Fox News to get their daily news and whatnot. Well, now they're going to Breitbart, right? And we all know how biased they are. Right?
Yeah.
They're obviously pro-Trump. They're obviously conservative, and they obviously have an agenda and a narrative to spin. Much like CNN and MSNBC and so on, and Being Liberal and
HuffPost.
Vox, and yeah,
HuffPost is
these are
like, oh my god. It's yeah.
oh yes, it is cancer incarnate, is it not? But yeah, it's each one of these websites has a narrative to spin, and if you don't read both of them, it's fine to here's the thing. It's fine to read things that you agree with, because if you don't, well then how are you going to understand your own personal arguments in depth, right? Someone may have thought of a specific analogy to use or something like this. They may have thought of something that you would have never have thought of. But at the same time, you do have to test yourself, and you do have to kind of I don't want to see reaffirm your own beliefs, but you have to put yourself in these kind of simulated bouts where you're battling a hypothetical enemy by reading these articles, and so at least you have the opportunity to question yourself. Whereas, if you're wrong about something, at least the CNN article made you question something. At least it made you open your eyes a little bit. Maybe you got a little something wrong. Who knows?
You know, it's funny too. Like a couple years ago, I admit I used to actually listen to the Glenn Beck radio show, and he said one of the things he did experiment for 1 month. He did nothing but read left-leaning news like HuffPost and CNN, and he just wanted to see like to get a different outlook and different angle on things. And he said it was just insane how the news is the same, what they're reporting, but just what you take away
Yeah.
from it is just so much different.
Yeah, definitely. Oh gosh, it's yeah. They'll often have list like the same facts or something like that. I'll note that sometimes they'll have the same facts. But what's interesting is that both sides will genuinely cherry pick.
Oh yeah.
They will cherry pick to the world's end, just something to reaffirm their own beliefs. And that's, I mean, I don't know, that I'm fine with that, but at the same time, I'm not fine with that. It all has to do with reaffirming your own beliefs, but also at the same time testing yourself to some degree.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that 100%. I mean, I think people that listen to my channel are mostly either libertarian or right wing. I think I do have some on the left, and I encourage those on the left to listen to other people, not just me, even people I disagree with. That's why on this channel, I try to actually get everyone on from left to right to center, and just because I think it's good. I think it's good to actually be able to talk with somebody, especially if you disagree with them, just because talking is important. I mean, we got to have communication.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that, yeah, that's certainly been something that's been lacking over the years. Unfortunately, you'll get like the alt right and the alt left, or whatever you want to coin these not parties, but these whatever you want to coin these social movements, really. And typically, the losing side wants nothing to do with the other. Like recently, for instance, I was gonna report this in my kind of like little weekly news roundup, but I guess I'll spoil a little bit here, right? Recently there was a protest. Who are they protesting? Richard Spencer, I believe, if memory serves. They were protesting Richard Spencer, and there was an actual neo-Nazi at this convention to watch Spencer. Like I'm talking shaved head, full 9 yards, right?
Yeah.
And this black guy comes up and he gives this guy a hug, and he says, why? He asks him, "Why do you hate me? Why do you hate me, dog?" He says, and the guy is rather confused. The neo-Nazi is rather confused. You can kind of tell, and well, the neo-Nazi just said, "Well, I don't know. I don't know why I hate you." That's how incredibly, like,
Partisan,
I
yeah.
don't know. This is I suppose this is one of the rare instances where the left actually has the moral high ground, right? But um, it's so weird to see things like that, and politics has become so incredibly divisive that this is what we're resorting to. Like an actual reasonable discussion is like freaking astounding, and everyone's head explodes. It's just, oh my gosh. Like I don't know why, but that story actually shocked me. I wasn't expecting that kind of result. But
Yeah.
that's something the left does. They'll often retreat into their safe spaces in their colleges. But
Oh yeah.
hopefully this signifies a kind of changing of the times where people will hopefully have a more intellectual conversation.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see what happens. Now, earlier yesterday, you told me about Trump amends Executive Order 13223. Can you talk about that?
Yes. In layman's terms, Order 13223, basically anyone that is in the military, we're talking just the base bill here. We're not talking about the amendment that Trump added on. 13223 basically allows the commander in chief to extend anyone basically, if you're in the military and say you're doing your basic 4 years or whatever it is in the military, well, the president can sit down and say, right, this guy, congratulations, you're now going to be in the military for 6 years. And seeing as how you're government property at that point, you have no say in the matter.
Yeah.
So it allows the government to basically extend the services of enlisted individuals in the Army, the Navy, the Marines. It's literally, this extends to all branches, the Air Force even. And so Trump recently made an amendment, right? And he's saying, okay, so not only can I extend your services in a time of war or chaos or whatever it might be, not only can you serve 6 years instead of four. Well, guess what? Let's say you served those 4 years. You've been out of the military for about a year or so. Well, guess what? You're going to get conscripted back into the military, even though your contract is up and you are out. So this is essentially conscription of veterans, is what this boils down to.
Well, I kind of have a question with that. I just thought of this. I actually listen to a lot of Tom Clancy, and Tom Clancy is actually pretty good for talking about government and politics. And in some of his books, some of the military members actually do get called back, even though like they're off, and like you just said, 4 years instead of six. I guess my question is, doesn't that already happen?
To be totally honest, I actually wasn't even aware that that happened before.
I guess it could
What
be
kind of
maybe the
circumstance?
reserves. I guess yeah, maybe it could have been the reserves or something. But I know in a couple books that there's some instances like that. But then again, they are books, so I guess either way, this executive order, if this is brand new, I mean, I don't like it. It kind of reminds me of the draft in a way. I mean, if you put your time into the government, you earned
Yeah.
your time off. Being called up, it almost seems like this is a prelude to war. I mean, why else would you need to do this unless you are predicting a world war coming up where you need an excess number of troops?
Yeah, totally. Um, and the reason this is particularly troubling is just because it would affect my personal life in general. I have my dad is in the Air Force, my uncle's in the Army, and then of course I have multiple people I talk to online. My friends like Redbeard was in the Navy, and MC was I actually can't remember what branch MC is part of. But there is a plethora of people I know that are in the Army or the Air Force, those two branches specifically. There's a ton of people I know that are currently in the military. Well, fast forward 5 years down the road. Well, what happens when those people get drafted basically back into the military? What if it happens tomorrow? You it's just it's a horrible instance. It's one of those things where it's just like, right, this is all out war. And I'm
Yeah,
not talking, Iraq War. No, like I'm talking World War One, World War Two, all-out war, where Ford factories are converted into, making Sherman tanks and whatever. And this is certainly, if not a prelude or a precaution, this is certainly an indication that there is something incredibly huge happening behind the scenes, and that is what's worrying.
well, I was just reading the comments or chat here, and Redbeard said that this is the standard, has always been before Trump. MC said it also limits the ability of the commissioned officers. And then MC said, yes, it happened to me. So Redbeard said, you do 4 years, you have 4 years reserve ready to be called back. So I was going to say, yeah, but I wonder why then Trump would need to amend. I mean, the term amend means you are altering something, you are modifying something. So I wonder exactly
Yeah.
what was amended in the actual order and what was changed. I have to look into that, I think.
Yeah. Well, it sounds as if that this is a type of conscription. So I'm wondering, maybe someone in the chat, MC or Redbeard, hopefully can answer this, but were you, I, I don't want to say conscripted, were you brought back into the military with essentially bonuses, like were you paid extra, or or did they just come up to you and just say, right, well, you have no choice, sorry, buddy? And that's what I'm curious
Yeah,
to know, because it sounds as
yeah, I
if
think it
people,
might be no choice.
yeah. Yeah. Because it sounds as if maybe before you had a choice, maybe they sweetened the deal with some extra bonuses or a promotion or something of this. But it sounds as if, and this is just the way it sounds. Keep in mind, I have no context as I was never in the military. I only have family members that were in the military. So I could totally be wrong here, and that's fine, I'll admit that. But it sounds as if you literally have no choice. And it sounds before as if it sounds like you had a choice previously.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see, do more research on it. But let's go to our final topic here. Trump's tax plan, the brackets 35, 25, and 12. You like, dislike, your thoughts?
Sorry, what did you 35,
I
25, and 12?
Yep, the exactly how much you have to make to be in the brackets, that is unscripted yet. There is no numbers. So I
Yeah.
guess I'll let you talk about it first before I get my opinion.
Um, uh, Personally, that is still a little too high for me, personally. And keep in mind, I'm no millionaire. I work at a department store, right? But so I'm not exactly a millionaire, but personally that is still a little too high for me.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about some kind of if you want to talk about some kind of tax or just a basic tax on a disposable income or something like this, that 35 I would bring that down to a 20. Um, at the highest 25. Um, so I mean, granted, it's tax reform. I'm happy. It's better than before. Baby steps and insert euphemisms here, but when it comes down to the principle, I'm still not quite happy. I would prefer it to be just a little lower.
I would I guess agree with you, it needs to be lower, but I think on the opposite end here, like a couple years ago or 3 years ago on my last job I was working, I was making about 94,000 a year. So it was about 26% tax rate with state taxes included, it was like 29 to 30%. And if I'm pretty sure that this second bracket, this 25%, is going to be essentially what it was when I was making that much. So I really don't think there is a tax cut for the middle class like there should be. Like if I had my way, if I could all of a sudden say, you know what, tax plan is this, I would keep the top bracket at.
Hello, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh yes, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I don't know, my computer's lagging. But
No problem. Could you repeat yourself, please?
yeah, if I had like if I was like could make my tax bracket, the top would be like 40% for 1 million or more, and then if for like the for 250,000 to 999,000, it would be 15%. Then from 50,000 to 249,000, it would be 10%, and then below 50 would be 0%. Zero. And then I'll do like a 15% corporate tax rate with tax credits to companies that do research and development. So if a company wants to
Yes.
expand like in a poverty-stricken area, maybe they pay 10%, maybe they pay 8%. And what I think that would do, that would be a massive tax cut to the middle class and lower class. And the rich will still make more money because the corporate tax now is lower. So even though their individual income remains the same, they're still making more money due to the corporate tax decreasing. So I think that would really spur economic growth. And I think it'd be good to get a huge tax cut to the middle class. I think the 25 is too high for Trump, and I'm not sure exactly
Yeah.
what the salary is in that bracket, but if it's anything like how it was with Obama, I think it's too high and it should be lower.
Yeah, definitely. The the people that deserve tax cuts, in my opinion, are the rich and the lower class. And the reason this is because the lower class, people in like my tax bracket, for instance, taxes, or I don't know, maybe this is just relative to California. I don't know. Maybe, maybe my maybe them charging me an arm and a leg. Maybe that's not enough for California or whatever. But I don't make an incredible amount of money, but even just a 1% cut is so nice. It's so nice. I, I told this story recently, but I remember the first time I actually got paid, and my heart just completely sank. It's like, right, yeah, you could have made $400, but you didn't. And so I assume that this was very much like this is very much what other people are feeling in the lower class. And as for the upper class, these people are not making nearly enough money. Previous to these tax reforms, they weren't making enough money to actually expand their business and give people like me jobs. I heard this. I heard this. What was it? Oh, I watched, I think, 2 or 3 days ago, the debate between Sargon and then
Like Thomas
uh,
Sowell, I think his name was someone. Yeah, I saw part of it.
Thomas yeah, something like
It
that.
could have been somebody
I
else,
just got
but
around to watching that, and someone said something afterwards. Someone said something as just a brief comment. He said the poor are the lifeblood of the rich, and the rich provide for the poor. And I think that's a very good comparison. I think because without the rich, without these big corporations, I wouldn't have jobs because the middle class and a lot of people like to talk about the middle class being job creators, and that's fine, and they are, but they're not as significant and they do not hold as much sway in the marketplace as these large corporations. And so the large corporations, if I had it my way, and this is coming from someone who is in the lower class, financially speaking, not to, sorry, I
Yeah.
don't mean to like keep, oh, I'm so poor, sorry, I didn't mean to say that, but the someone from who's in the middle, the lower class, I want these people to have tax breaks because that means they can create more jobs for people like me who are unemployed, and that means that I could potentially get a raise. Or when I do get a raise, it could potentially be just a little bit higher on than the competitors or something like this. And I really, really want these things for just me specifically. And of course, these benefit other people. I suppose it's kind of a rational selfishness at this point. But I want the rich to have higher tax breaks so I could potentially earn more, or at least move up in the world, get a better job, something like
Well,
this.
that's what Ben Shapiro says a lot too. I mean, how many poor people are hiring you? You know, the fact is nobody. If you're poor, you're not hiring people. You're looking for jobs, and um, so yeah, I would agree with that. But that's why I would have to say, I guess in a perfect world, there wouldn't be an income tax. What most people don't realize is that the progressive income tax, that is the actual name for it, the progressive income tax was ruled unconstitutional in the late 1800s. The Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional. It was tantamount to theft. Now people can't imagine living without it. I mean, the income tax is like a part of our daily lives now. In a perfect world, we wouldn't have an income tax. We'd be back on the gold standard. The government would have to borrow money from corporations if it wants to go to war. I mean, it wouldn't
Yes.
have the benefit. I don't know if benefits is a right word, but it wouldn't have the benefits of fiat currency, so it can just subsidize and monetize any program that it wants, which it does now.
Yeah. And I read, oh, maybe I should. No, I'll bring it up. So I don't remember who did the research, or I couldn't possibly recite any of these citations that this person did, but someone I think about 4 or 5 years ago did this study, this comparison, if you will, and essentially he was like, right, so if we take the kind of Carnegie-esque steel workers from the mid 1800s and compare them financially to today, with of course taking into account inflation and all this other stuff, the quote unquote minimum wage for a lot of these middle or lower class workers, it was around $15. Taking into account inflation and all this, so it's that's incredible, and that's in a complete free market. Right, and today we're suffering under these government regulations. How much do you think you could be making if you want to take this study into account? How much do you think someone like me would be making? Instead of making, X amount of dollars that I make currently, I could be making around 15, and that's just as a kind of, basic lower class worker myself.
I could be wrong on the exact number. I know I did a video about this like over a year ago, but the EPA, all the regulations that the EPA imposes, if we had got rid of all of them, I want to say it's an extra $500 million we would actually just make in revenue, or not revenue, in GDP, basically, like companies and corporations. I think it's 500 million. Don't quote me on that though, but I completely agree. I mean, a big part of it is government regulations. And that's why with the whole tax reform here now, if we do tax cuts, we have to do what nobody ever wants to do. We have to cut spending. We cannot just cut taxes and leave spending the same, or else the deficit will shoot up. The Federal Reserve compensates by more inflation, and inflation is a tax. Inflation is the worst tax of all,
Yes.
and it hurts the lower class primarily because inflation devalues your dollar. While the lower class, they have less dollars than the upper class. So when their dollar devalues, they lose more money. So
Yeah.
hopefully Congress, I mean, I actually wanted to see one fiscal conservative get a bill through in Congress that cuts spending, but I don't see it happening anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that Bernie Sanders obviously doesn't understand, is that inflation hurts the lower class the worst. And what he proposes, sorry, not to get back on this Bernie Sanders
No,
thing,
go
but
ahead.
what he proposes is, going to take millions of dollars, billions of dollars even maybe, and it's going to require the printing of more money, obviously. And what does this money go to? Right, it goes to major corporations, it goes to insurance, it goes to like uh, it goes to just these insurance corporations and all these other different things. So when the government prints money, it goes from the top down. So the corporations will get it. The corporations might pay middle class or lower class, and then when the middle class and lower class get this money, when they finally get paid, when they get their hands on this money, it is essentially completely devalued at that point. So the upper class gets to spend this money at its full price, but the lower class gets this money at a slightly devalued rate, and that is essentially how it hurts the lower class.
Yeah.
And I couldn't explain the math to you because I'm certainly not an economist, but coming from professionals and professors who have studied this for tens of years, this is what happens. This is how the lower and this is how the middle class dies, right? Through inflation. This is, if you want to seppuku the middle class or the lower class in some kind of manner, this is how you do it. It's through inflation.
Yep. Well, it's funny. I don't know if you watched the Ted Cruz Bernie Sanders debate the other day on tax reform.
Oh, I want
but
to so bad.
well, it was to be expected. Ted Cruz used facts. Bernie used emotion. Those on the left said Bernie won. Those on the right said Cruz won. Blah 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 blah. But anyways,
Yeah.
a couple times Cruz said some statistics that I've heard before. That's really good. He said that if you would tax the 1%, everyone on the 1%, 100% of their income, it would only equal $1 trillion. And the programs that Bernie wants, I think it's like over 12 trillion. So where would you get all that extra money? Well, you'd have to borrow from the U.S. again, the citizens, and then you can't borrow from the citizens. You'd borrow from the other countries, and then finally you go to the Federal Reserve, and they will monetize it by printing more fiat currency, which, like we just talked about, will actually hurt the lower class. So it doesn't actually help anyone. It's just a big circle, and the devaluation just continues to expand the wage gap between the upper and the lower classes.
Yeah. Even in some of these socialist societies, if you want to just talk strictly about the lower class here, even in some of these socialist societies, you're talking about taxes on the lower class that in some, European, democratic socialist countries, right? You're talking about taxes upward of 30% for the lower class, right? My back is breaking, right? The average person's back is breaking right now. So just imagine how high it would be. Tack another 10 or so percent onto that. You're going to be You're going to be an economic despot. You're
I
not going to be
heard
able
though.
to buy anything.
I heard though, like the Scandinavian countries like Denmark and Switzerland and stuff, that their corporate tax rate is like 10 to 12%. So that's kind of interesting. I think we're 35 and they're at 10%. That's why people are going over there, because they can. It doesn't cost them money to start corporations over there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think another thing, some of these, or no, it wasn't. Oh, I totally forgot. I totally forgot what country it was, but there is a country in the Scandinavian region that is actually trying universal income, and universal income is going to be just terrible. I think, especially because if you're on a tax at such an exorbitant rate, people are essentially going to have no spending money, and in order to jumpstart your economy, or to just keep it running, just at the bare minimum, keep it running, you're going to need something akin to a universal income, I think. And universal incomes are, I don't think, a very good idea. It's going to cause even more inflation, I think. The printing of more money and all the things you said previously.
I had a conversation with someone about UBIs, and I'm wondering what you think about this. What if instead of entitlements, you have a UBI? Basically, no more food stamps, no more welfare. All those poor people get a UBI once a month or whatever, and that's what they have to live on. So basically, I mean, we'd save a lot of money, because we'd have to, a lot of people lose jobs because the welfare system will lose like thousands of employees. Those who, I forgot the name, regulators, I think they're called, or something like that. They would lose a lot of, you know, jobs that way. But at the same time, we would definitely shrink the size of government. We would shrink the bureaucracy, and I mean, we could use that money then to, I guess, auction off to private institutions to create more jobs that way. Mad Dodge, a UBI is a
Oh,
universal basic
it,
income.
yeah. You know that I suppose that depends on. Oh gosh.
You know, like, I mean, if you
Basic.
add it on, it'd be bad. But I think as a substitute, I think it actually wouldn't be bad.
Yeah. As a substitute, right. So if we're talking a substitute to welfare and food stamps and all these things, I would actually be fine with that to a degree. Um, Keep in mind that it totally depends. The what's missing, unfortunately, is context, because no one has really tried universal income at the moment. Um, but I suppose it totally depends on context. You know, a
Yeah.
lot of these Scandinavian countries, they pride themselves on their empathy. They pride themselves on the ability to take care of the poor, and there's no such thing as homeless people in Sweden, and all these all these other things, right? So they pride themselves on that. Well, the chances are, and this is just speculation, the chances are they're probably going to want to add the universal income on top of the pre-existing benefits that people
Yeah.
are supplied. But if you want to talk about a substitute, I would be totally fine with that. And I suppose in that context, it would have to depend, it would be relative to what people are making now in benefits, if not less, I would hope. But even then, a universal basic income, you wouldn't be able to purchase all the benefits, I would hypothesize, if you had to substitute the two. So I'm
Yeah.
just trying to like work this all out in my head. This is
Yeah. I think
I never thought
the
about that.
logistics would definitely have to be figured out. But I think we'll call that good here. I got to actually work tomorrow morning at 5 a.m., everyone. So I'm sorry for cutting it short. But again, I want to thank 40 Ounce for coming on. His channel description is in the comments section or in the description. And his Twitter is in the description. So be sure to subscribe, follow him on Twitter, all that fun stuff. So 40 Ounce, thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Alrighty. See you guys.